Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia, and this is the situation report or the summary for the day of 997 to 998 for the 16th to 17th of November. And welcome back to the DPA War channel. I tried, basically it's an experiment to see, whether, is it worth it to put everything into the main channel. But I feel like the content strategy, well, is not that bad, but it didn't really work the way how I really expected it to do. So I'm putting this back, or the SITREP back to the DPA War channel. So yeah, if not the War channel, I don't really have time to create extra content lately. So we are back, and we're gonna start off with the some missile strike news. So there is the geolocation of the Russians missiles hitting the Kremenchuk hydroelectrical station. So again, winter is coming, and the Russians are now back to destroying electrical infrastructure, and this part of a massive missile strike on across all of Ukraine. And there's really nothing much to shout about. It was hitting a lot of substations to diminish most of the nuclear power plant capabilities. I think the entire nuclear power plant's ability to generate electricity has dropped to, I think, 20%, something around that range, because most of the substations were hit. They have to shut down most of the operation of the nuclear power plant. The Russians did not hit the nuclear power plant itself. It's only the supporting infrastructure like the substations as usual. So because if you hit the nuclear power plant, you also hit yourself, because the radiation will just hit yourself as well. So we're going to go into the let's go to the southern side in the Kherson region. The Ukrainian Defense Ministry, as usual, continues to talk about fighting in the region of the pre-Dnipropetrovsk direction. It could really literally mean anywhere. I used to think that it's mainly around here because there is Dnipropetrovsk, pre-Dnipropetrovsk here, but over time I also realized that it could actually represent anything around here. So yeah, so let's just wait and see. I don't think it's anything significant. There is a geolocation of a helicopter missile strike at Lvove. So that's interesting that the helicopters are now operating in this sector. Otherwise, shelling is reported at Komishani, and Yantarne, Ogovka, as well as Kozatske. So these are a few regions that the Russian Defense Ministry announced that they have shelled. Otherwise, so that's the current situation in the Kherson front. Nothing particularly special per se. Mikhailivka, just across the Dnieper River, was hit as well, according to the Russian Defense Ministry. We move into the Zaporizhia front. So this is Zaporizhia, and this is the Zaporizhia front. And the Russians are still conducting some kind of offensive operation in this region here. But before we go there, there is a alleged HIMARS getting hit by a Lancet of Soloshine. But but that's just not sure. But HIMARS operating in that region does make sense, and of course you probably might have heard, if you are following the Ukraine war news, that the United States have approved the Ukrainians to be able to use the long range missiles to hit Russia. So maybe that's why the HIMARS are awaking again. Maybe fighting is reported at Pyatikaki, Novoandrievka, Nestryanka, as well as towards Orikhiv. Oh, there's some ugly arrows, man. Let's try again. Pyatikaki, Novoandrievka, Nestryanka, as well as Orikhiv. So that's the current situation. It seems like the main bulk of the situation, the main front, it seems to be still around here, where the Russians are making pushes. Previously, there is fighting reported towards Novodanilivka. So that's all we have from this Zaporizhia front. We move into the Velika Novosilka sector of the Donetsk front, where the Russians were on the Velika Novosilka offensive. There is no new mapping updates regarding this sector. Russians are pushing at Novodarivka. Rivnopil, there's reports of fighting at Novosilka, according to the Russian Defense Ministry. Fighting is reported towards Blahodane, Makarivka, and Velika Novosilka. The Russian Defense Ministry announced the capture of Makarivka on the 16th of November. That's interesting. Although the Ukrainians were reportedly taking back some grounds in around Makarivka. So this also 16th of November, with Deep State UA talking about Ukrainians managed to recapture some parts of the south of Makarivka. So that's that's a bit of like a contradiction to the Russian Defense Ministry's report. South of Novoderivka, the Russians managed to gain a little bit of grounds from geolocation of FPV drones or drones attacking Russian assault groups, assault infantries on motorcycle. So this caused some frontline changes south of Novoderivka. Otherwise, if you look at the situation around here, that's interesting because Russian Defense Ministry announced the capture of Makarivka. However, the Ukrainian mapping still claims pretty much that they have control over the south of Makarivka. So that is a bit of a weird thing. So I'm not particularly sure what is the current exact situation right here because the Russian Defense Ministry did announce the capture. So let's see whether we will have more information like video footages or whatnot to actually corroborate the situation at Makarivka. We move over to the Uspenivka sector. On the western flank of the Uspenivka sector, the Russian forces are now pushing towards Constantinople. They are pushing in that direction. They are attacking towards Rozliv, Sukiali, and so let's see whether the mouse will be better. Fighting at Trudove in the region of Bohov-Yevlenka, there is some frontline changes over in the south of Konstantinopolsk. So if we zoom in a bit, Yantarne was mentioned around here. It could be Russians attacking from the Daune region where the fighting was actually reported in this area here. There's some frontline changes over there. Geolocation of Russian forces confirming that the Russians have made some progress south of Konstantinopolsk, and the Russian forces also have entered into Trudove, with the Russians continuing to make actions around here, pushing towards Uspenivka. Give me a second, let me check why my mouse is so inaccurate. Yeah, it could be my mouse pad is dirty. So yeah, so I'm cleaning that up. So the Russians are pushing towards Sukiali as well. You can see the mouse is so much better now. I can draw better. So geolocation of Russian airstrike at Sukiali just shows that it's a statement of intent from the Russian Defense Ministry. So if I move this thing over here, let's move to the eastern side of the Uspenivka front, and we can also see that the Russians are now making some actions towards Romanivka. Fighting is reported still at Antonivka and Katerinivka. According to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, they are still talking about the fighting around this sector. But at Daune, there is expansion of Russian controlled grounds in Daune itself. I think the full capture of Daune will be reported within the next 24-48 hours by the look of it. The Ukrainians are definitely doing whatever they can to hold down it, but tentatively it doesn't look like it's going to work out pretty well, especially now the pressure is coming out from the south, and as the Russians are now closing down on Uspenivka. And there is this he hunt. I'm not sure what the hell is that. Is it a small little village? There's only 2 houses over there, but the Russians are pushing in this direction right here, and this actually leads to a bridge. There's a bridge around here just south of Yatarne. So I think the Russians are now going for this bridge. If I'm going to zoom in, you can see that there's a bridge around here. The Russians are now making in this direction. Probably they want to take this bridge. This will go to force the Ukrainians to cross the other 2 bridges at Konstantinopolsk to actually retreat. That could potentially be the situation right here. Because if the Russians cut off this retreat route, then the Ukrainian forces defending Konstantinopolsk will have no choice to save their life to cross the bridge. If not, if the Russians front line looks like this, you can just imagine the kind of pressure it will be on the Ukrainian forces in this area here. So at Daune, you can see the situation looks like this right here, and Russian forces have taken most of the settlement already. The latest geolocation is on the western part of Daune, definitely showing that the Russian forces have taken most of the village. There is a little bit more left, but yeah, it doesn't look very defendable. There's some tree lines that could help out for the Ukrainian defense, but the momentum right now is with the Russians. So I think that's the main issue right here for the Ukrainian forces over this situation. And we move further up north, over in the Krakow sector. So can I put it this way. So fighting is reported still in the Maximilianivka region, according to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. Somehow they're still talking about this, despite the front line has already progressed further. Fighting is reported at Kurakove, Novo Ilinka, Bereski, Ilinka, Novoselidivka, Vosnesenka, as well as on Sivka. Some frontline changes at over at Vodestenka, showing that the Russians are going to go along the railway line, going south towards Bereski. Russians have already entered into Bereski itself already. So they have entered into Bereski. If I zoom in, you're probably able to see that the entire eastern part, all the way to the railway line, is now under Russian control. So the Russians have already taken off all the eastern part of Bereski. They have taken the entire northern part of Novo Ilinka as well. The Ukrainian forces at Novo Ilinka is that technically already operationally encircled, because there's no way to cross this 200-300 meters gap along on the south of the railway line towards Bereski. So I think if there's any Ukrainian forces at Novo Ilinka, they are now operationally encircled. So I don't think this is tenable for the Ukrainians. And so the Ukrainians would have to definitely hold Bereski for as long as they can. If not, then the tactical situation in this sector is going to get worse, although it's already pretty bad. So that's the situation over in the Kurakove region. Over in this Selidove region, can I zoom in, zoom out? Okay, let's see. Further up north from Sonsivka, Russians are attacking towards Zoria and Novodimitrivka. So that is the thing. This is actually part of this sector in the northern part of Kurakove, where they're pushing this area, Sonsivka, Vodestenka, and Novoselidivka. So the Russians are just pushing everywhere, trying to expand their control. Over in the Selidove region, Russian forces are also expanding their control around this sector. We have the confirmation of the Russian capture of Kharkovivka as they continue to push northwest towards the north of Petrivka. Fighting is reported at Petrivka, Pustinka, Yurievka, Novo-Oleksievka, and the latest geolocation also shows the Russian forces pushing north of Selidove. So this expansion is significant, which means that Petrivka will not be holdable for the Ukrainians. Kharkovivka is lost, and they are now pushing towards the Chensky. The Chensky is over in the north at that sector. So they are now pushing towards here, the Chensky. So this area here, I think the Russians are now just consolidating. They're going to form a more straight line, a more tenable front line. I think this is the main objective right here for the Russians. There is shelling reported at Shevchenko, but of course it could also mean the other Shevchenko. Where is it? I remember seeing one more Shevchenko somewhere around here, but it's okay though. Yeah, Shevchenko is there. So over in the Khodivka, Novo-Khodivka sector, which is the Pokrov sector of the Pokrov front. Of course, as mentioned, shelling at Shevchenko. The Chensky is now under pressure. Fighting is reported at Lysivka, Sukiya. Novo-Khodivka was mentioned with Russian forces geolocated in the north of Novo-Khodivka. Fighting is still reported at Krutiya. This definitely shows that the Ukrainians still have positions over in the north of Novo-Khodivka. They are still holding position around here. Fighting is reported towards Minograd, Promin, and Myriolubivka. So this remains to be largely the same situation. As mentioned before, if you have missed, this is most likely just holding the line. The Russians are just holding this line around here is a standoff position with the main push over in the Lysivka direction, because they need to posture themselves in a much better front line. They need to shape the front line in the way that they can actually fight Pokrovsk or Minograd in a much more advantageous position. At this moment, the Ukrainians are having the advantage in the tactical sense. So in this way, this situation here is not favorable for the Russians. So the Russians would definitely have to go around and at least cut off the retreat, the reinforcement or the resupply route from the east. So with this front line, then the Pokrov will be more vulnerable. The other direction would probably to go up and cut off the other road to Minograd. But this is not a priority for the Russians right now, given the actions taken by the Russian forces. This is definitely not the main objective for the Russians. The main objective right now is to collapse the entire Uspenivka Korakove sector. I think this is the main objective, and this is starting to look a bit like it, with the Russian forces now, trying to bite down on this area here. So this is where the big pincer movement is going to be operated on. We move into the New York front. At the New York front, there is a geolocation of a Russian airstrike on Kalinove. So this is a very, very severely defended region, very, very heavily defended. So the Russians are not going to push here. Over in the Toretsk region, Russian forces are fighting towards Dilievka, Druzhba, Toretsk. There is geolocation of Russian forces confirming their presence around Zabalka, as mentioned in the frontline changes report. Fighting is reported at Skibinivka and Novopaske, which is also known as Petrivka. So this is the current situation. Geolocation of FPV drone strike hitting a Ukrainian vehicle in the rear position, confirming that the Ukrainians continue to have vehicles being sent to the Toretsk sector to help out with the defense of the city. So the Battle of Toretsk is very under-publicized, which is very unusual, I would say. That the heroic effort in this sector is actually should be quite high, but somehow this is just not in the pro-Ukrainian sphere of information information space. I didn't really see much about it. So yeah, we move into the Bakhmut front. In the South Bakhmut region, fighting is reported at Andriivka and towards Bilakhora. Nothing very special about the sector around here. No more information about Chasiv after the shocking teleportation yesterday. Otherwise, there is only fighting reported at Orikovo Vasilivka. By itself, I don't think there's much things. I think it's just skirmishes. As you can see, the defense line around here for the Ukrainians is ridiculous. It's just plain stupid to just forcefully clash through this region. So I don't believe the Russians are going to make it push in this direction. Anyone that tell you about Chasiv the Russians are going to conquer Chasiv offensive, whatever. Yeah, as it turned out that my initial analysis is still correct, that the Russians are not serious about Chasiv. This just don't make sense to push through. Over in the Sivers front, so unless they are Wagner, Wagner are crazy. They just try to bash through the most defended point, and then they conquered Bakhmut. Yeah, but it doesn't really have much of a strategic purpose to that. So no, it's a waste of lives. At the Sivers front, there's shelling reported at the rear positions. Interestingly, Ozene, Zakine, and Drodivka was all shelled, according to the information from the Russian Defense Ministry. So it's a bit unusual. Why is there so much actions on the rear positions? Fighting is reported in near Sivers, Verkhomokenyamske, and Zvenivka, as well as Rozdolivka. So there is some kind of a renewed attention on the Sivers front. However, according to the Ukrainians, there is only one attack. It's Verkhomokenyamske. Otherwise, there is Rozdolivka as well. But this come only in the morning report, in today's morning report. So it's a bit weird. But yeah, there is definitely some disparity between the Russian and Ukrainian accounts of the situation in this sector. But we shall continue to wait and see. Sivers front ultimately is still one of the strongest commanded and defended areas of the Ukraine war by the Ukrainians. Terrain-wise is very advantageous to the Ukrainians. The Russians have very, very little way to break through at this moment. Fighting is reported in the Kremina front as well, in the Serbianske forestry. This is the wrong icon. There is a geolocation of a Russian airstrike in Toske. Fighting is still reported at Terny, and there's fighting reported at Ivanivka. At Terny itself, there is yet another small little frontline change, with the Russians slowly creeping up as per the previous few times. But this is still very slow. But from the bridge itself, from the causeway, to the geolocation is merely 1.6 kilometers, not particularly far already. So another 2 kilometers of fighting to really take this crossing. And once they take this crossing, the Ukrainian defense line is going to collapse. As the next crossing is going to be at Yampolivka. So let's see how this continue to develop in this sector. We move into the Svetove front. At the Svetove front, there is a lot of fighting in this area. There's fighting reported at Nadia, Svetokhlibove, Novoyehorivka, Shinishkina, Krakivka, as well as Makievka. So this is unusually intense. A lot of fighting being reported in this area here. It could be a renewed limited offensive by the Russian forces in this sector. So, but this sector is really big. I mean, from Nadia to Makievka is 17 kilometers. So this is a huge front. So I think we're not going to see some very, very huge changes at this moment yet. And we shall wait for more information. A lot of fighting always reported here, but we don't really see much. Nothing much over at the Borova sector. We move into the Pischany sector. So at the Pischany sector, fighting is reported at Brestove, Pischany, Kuryakivka, Zarizove, Bohovslavka, as well as Koliniskivka. So this pretty much is the same situation right here. And the lack of full capture of Koliniskivka and Kuryakivka might suggest that the Ukrainians have very, very intense defenses or reinforcement in the Senkove region, where they are trying to prevent the Russians from taking all the way to the coast of to the river side of the Oskil River of these two villages. So which is why it's delaying and cause fighting to continue to be reported in this sector. So let's wait and see. The Ukrainians are doing what they could to hold back. Definitely this giraffe no longer looks like a giraffe. It looks very broken right now. I don't know what is this. So we move on. Over in the Kupiansk front. At the Kupiansk front, there is shelling reported at Prokopivka, a bit unusual. Fighting is reported at Kusherivka and Petropavlivka. The Russian incursion, the teleportation event, I think this is already over. I think the Ukrainians most likely have already taken all of these grounds back. This is the gut feeling I have. Shelling is reported at Podoli. Otherwise, this is the Kupiansk front. But this is just my projection. I don't think the Russians are inside Kupiansk anymore. So let's move on from the Kupiansk front. Over at the Kharkiv front, Russian forces continue to try to stretch the Ukrainian forces. Fighting is reported at Okrymivka, over in this region at Onorobivka, and fighting is reported at Lipsy. And what is this area here? Strelica, Mariprokodi, and Staricia, Force Chance. So you can see there is a lot of arrows across the entire front line. Very unusual. Oh, I forgot to close this too. Oh, I'm so sorry. I have been blocking your views. I'm so sorry. Yeah, pardon me. So that was from the Frontline Changes report. And so this continued to be the situation, and you can see that the Russians are trying to stretch the Ukrainians in all directions. So this will continue. I think the Russians still not yet ready to do a major offensive to create a bigger buffer zone. So tentatively, this is what it is for now. And we move away from the Kharkiv front over at the Kursk front. At the Kursk front or the Kursk front, fighting is now not reported at Blakovo, which is interesting. I wonder why there is no fighting being reported there. The Russians are largely concentrating the fighting around. Basically, it's not concentrating. Is they have expanded their offensive. Now we have fighting reported all across the Kursk front. We're fighting reported at Makhnovka, Martinovka. This is Cheskaya Poroshnoye. And then we have fighting reported at, I can't remember this, Pogrebki and Marevka. And then the Ukrainians are counterattacking towards Kremyanoye, I believe. Ogovka, in the other Ogovka. And Russians are now, however, pushing towards the center. I think I need to zoom in. If not, this is a bit too hard for me. So Manovka, this is being reported according to the Russian Defense Ministry. Unclear if this is just shelling. It could also potentially be through the forest, where the Russians are now taking the countrysides, seemingly, while the Ukrainians are defending more towards the open ground. So this could be a problem here. And over in this sector in the eastern flank, Martinovka was mentioned, Chekhovskaya Poroshnoi was mentioned twice. I'm not sure why it was mentioned twice. I think it's a typo. So otherwise, Russians are now making pushes in the eastern flank, which is a renewed attention in this sector. So I wonder if this represents an expansion of the Russians' counteroffensive actions in Kursk. And then over in the northern flank, we have fighting reported at Merevka, Pogrebki. Malaya Luknia was not mentioned this time round. So the Russians are definitely trying to straighten the front line around this sector. So let's wait and see. In the western, on the other side, the Ukrainians are counterattacking over at the Ogovka region, according to the Russian Defense Ministry. But that did not work out. The Ukrainian forces are counterattacking this area here, a bit unusual. Over in the western flank, the Russians seemingly have broke through the Zelenishite region. Now fighting or shelling is now reported at Lebedivka, Sverdlikovo, Alexandria, Zeleny, Clint, Darino, and Nikolaevo Darino. And this is, as you can see, this is unusual because the fighting is now, the fighting or shelling reported is now further away from the previous Novo Ivanovka, Zelenishite, or Lyubimovka region. It seems like the fighting has moved further towards to the rear positions that was previously, what the rear position was. Definitely, we will need more information to see if this is the case. The front line at Zeleny, Klin, and Darino and Nikolaev Darino remains the same, but it looks like this area here might have fallen back. The Ukrainians may have fallen back from this salient that seemingly is really hard to hold. So that's the current situation in the Kursk front. There's nothing over in the Novi Put region, so that's good. No people is going to die for stupid reasons. And that's about it. So this is the situation report, or the summary for the day of 997 to 998 for the 16th to the 17th of November. Sorry for that. Now I forgot about this this thing. I forgot to turn it off. But otherwise, thank you for watching. Press the like button. Subscribe. The DPA War channel lost over 100 subscribers for unknown reasons, just because I didn't post anything here or didn't post much. So yeah, the return of the SITREP hopefully will continue to keep the channel from dying. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next update.